Hi, everybody. It's Kelly Russell, the Rock Your Joy Coach. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to my channel. So, my topic for this week is based upon lesson 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. And, I love this lesson so much because this lesson really calls out how we really think, like what we really believe and in our ego minds is going to be our quote unquote salvation, and it's going to fix our problems for us and make our lives happy and enjoyable, and you know have it be peaceful and loving, and the way that we think our lives really should be. And that in our minds isn't God's plan for salvation. It's our plan for salvation, right? And salvation, what we're talking about here really means, our peace of mind and our ability to feel loved and secure and cared for and all of that. And so our plan for salvation, and Jesus doesn't pull any punches here. He really just calls it out and tells it like it is. So he says, the ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside of yourself. And each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. AKA, I would be okay, I would be happy, my life would be good, I could enjoy, my experience or whatever. But I don't have salvation basically because you or somebody else in my life is effing it all up for me, or some condition or some circumstance or some situation, and I don't have any control over it. And so basically I'm a victim. And if everything could just be the way that I want it and need it to be, then I could be happy and at peace. And Jesus is essentially calling bullshit on that and saying, yeah, that is the ego's plan for salvation. And I love where he basically says, there's a part here that says, according to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. Right? He's so hilarious. And it goes on to say further in this lesson that the ego's credo is seek and do not find. And so the ego will constantly present reasons in our minds why we aren't happy and why we are not able to be at peace and why we can't feel joyful and we can't just look at the world through loving eyes and be accepting of whatever is, and being able to look, when what salvation really means is being able to look at the world with the acceptance of Christ vision. That's like it's like a filter through which we see the world. And it's a filter that makes everything beautiful and everything rosy and golden and shimmering and sparkling, right? It's like a love filter. But in order for us to be able to see the world like that, and to see that our problems have been solved, and to see what God's plan for salvation really is, we have to be willing to let go of what we believe the plan for salvation is. We have to be willing to let go of the belief that the ego's plan is true. And that, as this lesson talks about, we're afraid to do that. We're afraid that if we let go of what we think in this world is going to make us happy, that somehow we're going to have a terrible experience, and we're going to be worse off than we already are now. And so what I love when it talks about God's plan for salvation. So what is God's plan for salvation? All right. So first of all, it says only God's plan for, it says there are two parts to this. Part A is only God's plan for salvation will work. And part B is yours will not. so it's embracing what God's plan is, and what God's plan is essentially letting go of our grievances, letting go of judging our brothers, letting go of condemnation, of believing that others are wrong, that we have to correct them. And this idea, and I see this a lot in my coaching and my psychotherapy practices, believing that if we just keep seeking the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, so I'm going to find another partner, I'm going to find another job, I'm going to move to another place, I'm going to let go of this relationship, and I'm going to find another relationship, and I'm going to stop doing this and start doing that. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't use discernment and deciding what relationships and what situations are serving our highest good or not, but to not be looking at the things in the outside world as that's my salvation. That's going to make me happy. That's going to bring me peace. Nothing that we can point to and say that, and nothing that is in this world, nothing that is temporal, nothing that's not eternal is going to bring us salvation, peace of mind, happiness, joy, love, and all those things that we want. So what this lesson is instructing us to do instead is to ask. So ask what God's plan is for salvation is. Not believing that we already know, assuming that we already have it down. But it says, so we begin the practice periods with God's plan for salvation will work and yours will not. And so in the first is our release from all of our insane attempts, right? All of our millions of ways that the ego tries to tell us that is our salvation, that we will just be happy if only this situation changes. That circumstance is different. This person does what we want them to do. That person stops doing what we don't want them to do. And the second part of the practice period is then devoted to asking, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? And it says, give him full charge of the rest of the practice period, and he will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear. So I have people tell me, well, I don't hear the answer. I don't hear Spirit talking to me. I don't hear any guidance. Bullshit. If you're not hearing it, it's because you're not listening. Maybe it's because you don't like what the guidance is. That could be. And this is something that takes practice. You don't just sit down one day and say, okay, I'm ready to hear. And then if you feel like you're not hearing anything, be like, well, that didn't work. Okay, I guess I'm going to go try something else, right? That'd be exactly what this lesson is talking about. Go finding something else in the world that's going to guide you because this didn't work. And instead, it's cultivating the ability to be able to hear the voice for God, which is the voice that's talking to us in the Course in Miracles. Okay, so it says, refuse not to hear. The very fact that you're doing this exercise proves that you have some willingness to listen, and that is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. And the last point that it makes here is holding grievances is the opposite to God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. And so when we are holding grievances, which is essentially anything, thinking thinking negatively about anything, blaming anything or anyone or any situation or concern or anything the way that it is or the way that it isn't, or if only I had this, or if only I didn't have that, or this person or that person is the reason why is my grievance and is the reason why I'm not able to be happy or at peace. When we are able to transform grievances into from fear, which is what they are. All grievances are based in the ego's fear. They're based in a belief in scarcity and lack and limitation and not enough, and we can't get what we want, and we can't be happy, and we are victims. And instead, transforming it with the most beautiful process that the Course in Miracles gives us, the vehicle for being able to shift our perception from fear to love so that we're not holding that grievance anymore. And that is by forgiving our perception of something, recognizing that it isn't true. So it isn't forgiving someone for doing something or for wronging us or for behaving in a certain way or for, whatever it is that we're holding them responsible for. It is forgiving them for what they didn't do. That's the hardest part of this whole forgiveness idea, and that people push back against, is that, but yes, they did do it. And yes, I heard them and I have the scars to prove it. Or I have, I could tell you, I recorded them. Look at the video. I saw them doing this or that or whatever it was. That's our desire, our ego mind's desire to make it real, instead of remembering that this whole world is a dream that we are making up, and that what A Course in Miracles is trying to help us do here is to awaken from the dream into our actual reality, which is only love. It is, even while we are still appear to be here in the dream, we can awaken and we can have that experience of peace and love and joy and fun and laughter and having a great time and feeling tranquil and serene and happy no matter what is going on. It's because we are able to look through that filter of love, as I talked about before. That's what Christ's vision is. That is what God's plan for salvation is, and how we go about being in that place and being able to see like that is practicing that process of forgiveness over and over toward anything that we think is a grieveness. So I'm forgiving you, or I'm forgiving this situation because I remember there's nothing to forgive. I remember that I'm dreaming an illusion that the ego mind made up. And I forgive myself for dreaming that illusion. I forgive myself for believing the ego's lie and for making it real, and forgiving myself for perpetuating this dream and this illusion by continually judging and condemning and criticizing and making wrong. That is how we don't wake up. That is how we choose the ego's plan for salvation instead of God's plan. And it doesn't work, and it will never work. And so, this is the royal road to awakening, to peace, to love, to joy. When people come to me for coaching, they talk about, when I ask them, well, what's bringing you? They will talk about a variety of specifics, people in their lives, certain relationships, certain conditions, and they're sort of looking at those things as that's the reason why I'm looking for coaching. What they're really looking for, those things are substitutes. That's an ego smoke screen. What they're really asking for is to be at peace and to be happy and joyful and feel loved and loving and lovable. But they're just looking in the wrong place. That's all. And what this lesson talks about is for us to accept the responsibility. Not the responsibility, not blaming ourselves, not feeling guilty or bad or ashamed. That is actually the opposite of what the Course teaches, but taking the responsibility for which plan for salvation we choose. Because if we choose the ego's plan for salvation, we will never be happy. We will never be at peace. We will never feel joyful or loved or loving or lovable. So our responsibility is which teacher we choose to listen to, which voice we choose to listen to, and which plan for salvation that we decide to embrace and practice. And so that's my message for you today, is that only the ego, whoops, that was a Freudian slip. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and yours / the ego's will not. And so take that lesson and take it in, and practice what it talks about. Read the lesson on your own, but every day be asking that, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? And then listen, and you will hear the answer. It's a still small voice. It may come to you in the form of a divine idea or an inspiration or an aha moment, or you may read something, or you may listen to something, or something may come across your email or some social media thing to pay attention to, or a book there is to read, or somebody might say something that just really resonates with you. And so toward that end, I'm also going to say that for some people, working with me is what that divine guidance ends up being. And if you have thought before about coaching with me or doing spiritual mentoring with me, or you have worked with me before and you have been considering doing so again, I invite you to give that some serious thought, and to, if you haven't already, to book a discovery call with me to discuss how my coaching and spiritual mentoring might be of assistance to you in being able to live a life that's aligned with miracles. You deserve that. So thank you so much for joining with me today. I love you so much. I'll see you next time.